Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and in today's video, we're going to be taking our first look, or Games Workshop have shown us, our first look at what Spearhead actually is. If you haven't been keeping up with the news, Age of Sigmar 4 is coming soon, and there is going to be another way to play Age of Sigmar 4, which is very much intentionally directed towards new people wanting to pick up Age of Sigmar 4 minis, people who want to play smaller, faster games, and people who may be transitioning from other game systems, such as 40k. This isn't the first time Games Workshop have done exactly this. Last year, during the launch of Warhammer 40,000's 10th edition, they released something called Combat Patrol. This was very much after they had done a smaller game format at the end of 9th edition called Boarding Action. I think Boarding Action? Something like that. Anyway, the idea is that their starter boxes or their Spearhead boxes or Combat Patrol boxes, which is your kind of like start buying minis for the army bundle box, where normally minis are cheaper than if you bought them individually, can be played as a solo game where I can play against my friend. In concept, it's an incredible idea. I buy a box of minis, you buy a box of minis, and we battle out together, and then eventually maybe we scale up. Great concept. Let's see what Games Workshop have done to talk to you about this concept and tell us what has been happening with this concept for Age of Sigmar 4. There's going to be another video where I talk about how I feel about Spearhead, but for this, I'm just going to go through all the information for everyone and we're going to talk about it. Spearhead is a new game format from Warhammer Age of Sigmar. There are a number of differences between a full-size match play game and Spearhead, which has been designed to make the game accessible but retain rich tactical depth. It's a brilliant standalone game and a fantastic primer, according to them, obviously. Spearhead's footprint is also drastically smaller than that of a full game, played on a board measuring 30 inches by 22.4 inches, and if I'm not mistaken, this is, of course, the size of a Warcry board, and is also going to be included in the launch box as well. That's a quarter the size of a full battlefield and the perfect size to play on a kitchen or coffee table. The most exciting suggestion that I saw from the chat when we recorded it, while we were recording this, talking about this earlier, was that you could do a pub crawl version of Spearhead. Get your minis in a box, go to the pub, you play your Spearhead game, you drink some drinks, then you go to the next pub. It's an idea I'm definitely going to try and do. It sounds absolutely amazing. Love that idea. This article also assumes that I have a kitchen or a coffee table, which is bold. Okay, the incoming launch box provides everything you need to play with a friend, including 2 complete Spearhead forces, which is cool, terrain, double-sided board with printed objectives, and the pack of cards that really make this mode tick. So again, if you're looking to jump into Age of Sigmar, feels like that launch box or starter box that's coming up is absolutely perfect. You and your opponent, or you and your friend, wherever in the world, can buy that box, and it's your literal starter box that you can start to play the game. This is really good because Games Workshop have been very slow behind the industry on specifically this. Probably the best versions of this we've seen recently, obviously, are the updated version of Marvel Crisis Protocol and the recently released Star Wars Shatterpoint, both of which made incredible launch boxes, which were very competitively priced, and also you could play full whole games against your opponent. So they really need to keep up with that because that now is becoming the industry standard, and so they're trying to emulate that, which I think is great. The core rules, the Spearhead Battle Pack, and the rules for every Spearhead force in the game are going to also be inside of there. They've also said that the Spearhead rules will also be online. Okay, so what's happening with the existing Vanguard boxes, which is the boxes I told you about already? They're being switched over to being Spearhead boxes. Each faction Spearhead force is created from the contents of a single box, and all currently available Vanguard boxes will be rebranded to Spearhead boxes. As these sets contain different quantities of models, Spearhead has its own dedicated war scrolls and faction rules, and introduces new mechanics and balance each force against one another. The Warhammer Studios put in tremendous effort to this balance, and the result, every game you play comes down to a knife edge. I would like to point out as well, before we go any further, while it does say that the war scrolls are different, the 2 war scrolls that are featured, I would say, are probably 100% a copy and paste for the war scrolls that you're going to see in Age of Sigmar 4, like the beefed up versions. They're probably just missing a couple of abilities, but I assume the stat lines are identical. The reason is because they're almost identical to the stat lines that they were in Age of Sigmar 3. Similar, other war scrolls that we've seen in other articles have been almost identical to what we've seen in Age of Sigmar 3, and so I assume almost the entire edition from Age of Sigmar 3 at least kind of general profiles wise, is being copy and pasted over. So I wouldn't be too stressed about them being completely different war scrolls, because I have seen that as a criticism of this venture, and I think actually they're incredibly similar, and they probably should have not put that in there, because I think that's going to put more people off than involve people. But it's also at this point, I probably should also say as well, if you are watching this and if you're someone who's like, Spearhead's for me, Spearhead's got me excited, I'm super interested in playing Spearhead, please let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it as a podcast. I want to know what you think about Spearhead. Like, me and my local friends want to play, my local club are excited. What were your experiences with Combat Patrol? Did you play that? Is that what like exploded your club or scene? These are all things I can only learn by reading comments. Okay. This is one of the most playtested games we've ever produced by virtue of how quick it is to play and how much fun we're all having with it. That's something I'm going to break down in a separate video. Explains the product developer. Once you know how to play, you can get through a game during lunch break. The whole Warhammer studio was so enthused about it, we had a chart up. Do you know what? I'm going to skip this because this I'm going to cover in another video. With some Spearhead boxes containing elite units and monsters, now this is really exciting, and others packed with quintessential troops and foot heroes, balance is established in a number of ways, from holding power units back for later turns to give less durable units a second chance at life, which is really cool. Effectively, these boxes are imbalanced. They always will be. You can't expect, and there's a lot of ludonarrative dissonance, and a box which has got a big dinosaur in it against just some human troops, and the dinosaur not to win and beat them all up. And so, honestly, I think having tailored each one of the boxes, not just based on points, but in a separate way with some special additional rules, is honestly really nice and does show some effort in the rules writing, which is I like. Okay, units in Spearhead forces with the reinforcements keyword can return to the battlefield after they've been destroyed by using the call for reinforcements ability. You can set up this fresh unit in friendly territory, providing with a way to reposition and resurge in the future turns. And if you look here, the reinforcement ability you do in your movement phase, and then each reinforcement unit can only be replaced once, and replacement units cannot themselves be replaced. And you set them up wholly within 6 inches of the battlefield edge and not in combat. So that means in your turn, you're going to be deploying a slain unit from reserve 3 inches away from the enemy. And obviously, you're going to be able to charge and then fight. So it's going to be a very fast, aggressive, and deadly game where units are going to get involved in each other very quickly. So that is really fun. But reinforced units normally probably won't be super great, so you don't have to worry too much about that, which is cool. This is also a core mechanic as well, and this core mechanic, call for reinforcements, is probably a core mechanic in Spearhead, and not a core mechanic in the main Age of Sigmar game. Okay, particularly powerful units may instead be held in reserve. Yanastra's Spearhead, for example, features the God King Sigmar's Prime Hunter and a trio of hefty Annihilators, but the Lightning Strike Arrival ability keeps them off the board until the penultimate battle round. That means your Vanquishers, Night Vexen, and Stormstrike Chariot need to hold ground until the damage dealers can arrive to turn the tables. This is cool. I really like this. As a game design mechanic, this is great. How do I balance the fact that literally Yanastra, she was the front cover. She's on the front cover of Age of Sigmar 3. She's a badass. And she's in this box. How do I balance her being against just some other schlubs in the other Spearhead box? And the secret is you only get to play with them a third of the time. If a Spearhead game is 6 rounds, which we don't know yet, but probably is, you're not only going to get to play with them in rounds 4 and 5. So you're a third of this box you're only going to use in a third of the time in your Spearhead matches. But while I think that's a negative, I think it's actually really engaging that they've understood that there's a problem. Spearhead of 4 rounds. Oh, okay, so half the game. Okay, sorry, I apologize. Chat are updating me as we go. So Spearhead's 4 rounds, so for half the game, you can only use a third of the army. All right, that's better. That's better than it was. Okay, either way, I like the mechanic. I think that that's really valuable because it really recognizes that some of the units don't work against each other, which is good. So that's a good change, I think, or a good thing. This is the battle trait for Yanastra's Spearhead. Each faction gets their own powerful thematic battle traits, and you could choose from one of 2 different regiment abilities and one of 4 enhancements at the start of the battle to customize their force once they know who they are facing. I would say one of the things that is great about this is that there's lots of variety, so therefore replayability. But I would also say if you're looking for something for new players to play, that feels like maybe that's a little bit too many choices. I got to pick my army. I've got my army rules. Cool, let's go. No, wait, pick some regiments, pick some enhancements before you get started. Maybe that's fine. but they are pitching this as to new people. So I just wanted to, bring that up. War Scrolls in Spearhead. Spearhead War Scrolls are slightly simplified but designed to feel similar to War Scrolls in the full game. The Spearhead Battle Pack doesn't use advanced rules modules, so it doesn't involve special rules for command models or advanced magic, but it does introduce many of the advanced concepts through abilities and cards. Your warriors almost always share the same characteristics and base weapon profiles as their full Warhammer Age of Sigmar equivalents, like I was talking about earlier, but the War Scrolls have all been adjusted to work properly at this scale. For instance, the clan rats below are vile verminous hordes who will swarm Spearhead board. In a full game of Age of Sigmar, they'll have the critical, which is a 6 to hit, is going to auto-wound and make them even more ferocious. So looking at the clan rats profile, you can see that they've got 1 health each, 5 up armor save, they move 6 inches. They've got 2 attacks each, that hit on 4s, wound on 5s with no rend and 1 damage. And with Battle Shot being gone, or not part of this game, that does mean that those 20 models that you're going to have to try and get rid of. They've also got a special rule called Seething Swarm, where you can return day 3 slain models to the unit at the end of any turn. And this is great. We absolutely love that because that means you can keep putting them back into what is quite a light unit and keep refreshing them. I expect their War Scroll to be identical in Age of Sigmar 4, but I expect them to just be able to add on some special rules to this. The Disc Riding Magister demonstrates how magic is simplified in Spearhead. In full Warhammer Age of Sigmar games, so the Magister of Tzeentch in Age of Sigmar, full Age of Sigmar, is obviously going to be a wizard. But because there is no magic in Age of Sigmar, well, in Spearhead, what they've done is they've removed magic, the module, out, and instead what they've done is they've kind of trained people on how to cast spells. So they have this special ability that you do in the hero phase called Bolt of Change, where you roll 2d6, and if you roll over a 6, you're going to do d3 mortal damage and be able to add some Zangors to a Zangor unit. This is exactly how the spell will work from the spell lore in the magic module in main Age of Sigmar. And I do like this because it's effectively teaching new people how you would cast spells, but kind of like burying it as an ability, which I think is really positive. I genuinely do. And similarly, you can see all of the keywords for what this unit looks like here. Health of 6, 4 up save, moves 14 inches, has got a special shooting attack, and isn't a particularly potent combat character, as most characters or wizards in Age of Sigmar are not. I like that. I think that's really good. That's really healthy, because then that means, again, if you're at home and you're like, oh, so much to learn already, this is nice because it's going to help you out, which is good. So those are the basics of Spearhead, but there's another driving force for this new game mode. 2 decks of cards are included in the box, one that provides you with a twist for each round, another that gives you the ability to score battle tactics or use powerful command abilities. They're a critical part of what makes Spearhead so compelling and rich with strategic depth, so we'll be taking a closer look at them in a later week. The one thing I will say about that is that the battle tactics are generally a thing that you would add on. I would say battle tactics as an advanced module is something that you would add on to Age of Sigmar. Like, if I was teaching someone new, I probably wouldn't add battle tactics on. I'd just teach them how to move the models around and wouldn't do that. So hopefully in Spearhead, you could just leave those battle tactics to the side anyway, because that's an additional thing to think about every round. And the twists is an additional thing to think on each round as well. Either way, I think I'm really excited about there being a game format that people are going to be able to pick up and play. And I know loads and loads of people out there are excited about the concept of playing Spearhead. And this is your opportunity to tell me why. What you like about it, what you think it could be, what you'd like to see, your local community. If you were to run a Spearhead event, as an example, would you run a Spearhead event where no one has to paint their minis so everyone can just learn really early? I think that's a real positive as well. I like the idea that you could do like almost a draft pick Spearhead. Turn up to an event, you get given a random box, put your hand into a pot, pull a random box out, build up your Spearhead and play it over the course of that weekend. Is it going to be that simple and that easy to pick up and play? Probably not, but it's quite interesting. And I'd like to know what everyone thinks. It's what I want to know. This is one of those, I'd like to know what everyone thinks about this so far. What do you think about the information presented? And how do you feel about it? Loads of love. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone on the Wargamer Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. Loads of love and goodbye.